Do not adjust your set. I am a trained professional sock puppet, here to give you my impression of a duck. This is the duck. Look out! That was a duck. It may take a moment for some of you to get that. I will wait. Okay. That's enough puppet-based humor. Hi, my name is Scott Parker. I am a World Mission Associate for Trauma Resiliency Facilitation in Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon, living in Beirut going on 9 years now. Over 5 years ago, the Middle East Council of Churches, MECC, asked me to address the immense needs around child trauma, which led to the development of Strong Kids, Strong Emotions, which is a 12-week play-based trauma resiliency program for Iraqi and Syrian refugee kids. Fred Rogers has said that play is the work of childhood, hence the puppets and the craft supplies. One of my favorite things to do is dump a suitcase of pipe cleaners and googly eyes onto the table and invite our kids to make whatever their imagination compels them to create. And this practice is actually based in neuroscience and evidence-based research. There is scientific evidence to suggest a connection between a person's capacity for anxiety and their capacity for creativity, as if the two rest on the same toggle switch and are unable to simultaneously function. So when I am consumed by anxiety, it is very difficult to think creatively or even to talk creatively. But when our kids engage in a creative activity, the anxiety shuts off, and that creates a safe place for our strong kids to talk about difficult things, to be in relationship, to heal, and to simply be a kid. For refugee families in the Middle East, there's not a lot of space to be a kid. I could spend hours talking about the difficult conditions that refugee families live under and the realities of generational trauma that gets passed on from parents to their kids. But I want to focus on why addressing child trauma is so essential. There is a study called ACEs. This is a landmark study conducted by the Center for Disease Control and Kaiser Permanente in the mid-1990s. And the ACEs study focused on how traumatic childhood events may negatively affect adult health, and they found a direct link between childhood trauma and adult onset of chronic disease, failure in school, incarceration, divorce, and unemployment. The higher the number of adverse childhood experiences, ACEs, the greater the impact of obstacles that hinder that person's ability to thrive in adulthood. So, if we want to get serious about eradicating systemic poverty, we've got to get more serious about addressing child trauma. And that's why Strong Kids, Strong Emotions exists. The Strong Kids program uses the trauma resiliency model, also known as the community resiliency model, which we just call TRM, CRM, or TRIM and CRIM for short. This was authored by the activist, social worker, and nurse Elaine Miller-Karas. And TRIM and CRIM is a biology-based model that teaches people to understand how their body processes trauma. Trauma is biology, not weakness. And as they learn this, they learn how to track their body's sensations of distress and wellness. So they become aware when a traumatic memory or event activates them and bumps them into their high zone, where they're upset, angry, or afraid, or it bumps them into their low zone, where they are experiencing deep sadness or depression or numbness. Then the person is able to use a whole variety of somatic sense-based skills to bring them out of the high zone or the low zone and back into what we call the resilient zone or the okay zone. This is an empowerment model that allows kids and adults to manage their own symptoms of trauma by using biology-based skills to reset their own nervous system. I've been working with trauma in hospitals and communities for over 11 years. I've been trained in multiple models, and TRIM and CRIM is hands down the best model in terms of equity. It's based in biology, not culture. So any faith group or people group can apply these skills to their culture, their faith, and their sense of meaning. TRIM and CRIM is a practical, deceptively simple model that can be taught to community members who can then teach it to the people in their own circles of influence. TRIM-CRIM is an example of what's called appropriate technology. And this is a term that means technology that ordinary people can use for their own benefit and the benefit of their communities that doesn't make them dependent on systems over which they have no control. So this is equity-based. Rana Abu Rashed is the Arabic child psychologist with whom I partner to facilitate Strong Kids. And both of us have been trained in TRIM and CRIM, and our work is to develop reproducible, resiliency-informed communities who can embody and teach resiliency skills in regions that are experiencing trauma. And finally, I can't talk about Strong Kids without mentioning involvement with our US partner congregations. There's a lot of different things that my spouse and I do in the Middle East, but Strong Kids has uniquely captured the imagination of so many of our US partner churches, and they are intimately involved in a whole variety of ways beyond simply funding us. Now, one could be cynical and say that we're just playing the cute kid card to touch a congregation's soft spot. I'm okay with that because so much of the trauma I work with has come at the hands of US militarism, US economic warfare, our immigration policy, our racism. And congregations, by and large, have been unaware and unengaged because the people of these countries are held at arm's length. Strong Kids helps to erase that gap, and it creates relationship, which leads to action and change. And we are working to make that relationship mutual. This month alone, Strong Kids is working with 2 different PCUSA congregations to lead virtual resiliency skill seminars for the people in their US communities that are under-resourced and dealing with trauma. US communities learning resiliency from the experience of refugee families. The Middle East Council of Churches is using Strong Kids, Strong Emotions, not only to bring life-changing resiliency skills to underserved communities, but we are also working to make our global neighborhood a little closer and a lot healthier.